There is a battle happening inside you right now. It has been happening every single day of your life. And most people never even notice it. In a quiet mountain village, long before the world became loud, there lived an old man known simply as Elias. He was not rich. He was not famous. He had no great title. But people walked for hours, sometimes days, just to sit beside him for a few minutes. And at the end of every visit, they left feeling something they could not explain. Lighter, clearer, more themselves. Nobody knew his secret, until the day a young man named Rowan arrived. Angry, broken, and ready to give up. Rowan had grown up in a family of farmers. Hard-working people, honest people. But Rowan had always wanted more. Not in a greedy way. In the way a person wants something they can feel in their bones but cannot put into words. He wanted peace. He wanted to feel steady. He wanted to stop feeling like two different people were living inside him, pulling in opposite directions. Some mornings he woke up full of warmth, patient, kind, ready to help anyone who needed him. Other mornings, he woke up consumed by something darker. Jealousy of the merchants in town who seemed to have everything. Anger at small things. A cruel word that left his mouth before he could stop it. And afterward, always afterward, the shame. He had watched his closest friendship collapse because of one bitter argument he started over nothing. He had seen his younger sister flinch when he raised his voice. He had sat alone at the edge of the wheat field at night, wondering what was wrong with him. That was the night he decided to find Elias. The old man's home sat at the top of a pine-covered hillside. A single lantern hung from the door. Smoke curled gently from a stone chimney. Rowan arrived in the early evening. The sky behind him streaked orange and gray. Elias was sitting outside on a low wooden bench, watching the valley below. He did not seem surprised to see someone arrive. He just looked at Rowan for a long moment, then quietly said, "Sit down." Rowan sat, and without really planning to, he began to talk. He talked about the argument, about his sister, about the jealousy and the anger and the feeling that he was always fighting himself and losing. Elias listened. He did not interrupt. He did not look shocked or sympathetic or bored. He simply listened the way a river listens to everything that falls into it. When Rowan finished, the old man was quiet for a while. Then he said, "Tell me, do you know the story of the two wolves?" Rowan shook his head. Elias looked out at the last light fading over the hills and began to speak. "Inside every person," Elias said quietly, "there live two wolves. One wolf carries darkness, anger, jealousy, resentment, shame, pride that twists into cruelty, fear that hardens into control, greed that slowly hollows a person out. The other wolf carries light, patience, honesty, compassion, a kind of strength that does not need to be loud, gratitude, hope, the willingness to love without keeping score. Every day, these two wolves fight inside you. Every thought you have, every choice you make, every word that leaves your mouth, that is the battle playing out." Rowan sat very still. Something about the old man's words hit him differently than anything he had heard before. Not because they were new, but because they were true in a way he had felt but never named. After a moment, he asked what felt like the only question that mattered. "Which wolf wins?" Elias turned to look at him, and there was a quiet in his eyes that Rowan would never forget. "The one you feed," the old man said. The words fell into the evening air and stayed there. Rowan thought he understood, but he didn't, not yet. That night, Rowan slept in the small guest room Elias kept for visitors. He lay on a simple wooden bed and stared at the ceiling. He thought, if I just stop feeding the dark wolf, everything will change. I will stop being angry. I will stop being jealous. I will become the man I want to be. It felt almost easy in his mind. The next morning he woke with new resolve. Elias gave him tea and they sat together again in the early light. And Rowan said, "I understand now. I just won't feed the dark wolf anymore. I'll starve it." Elias was quiet. He wrapped both hands around his cup and looked at the mountain across the valley. "A starving wolf does not disappear," he said slowly. "It becomes desperate." Rowan blinked. The dark wolf does not die just because you ignore it, Elias continued. What is inside you cannot be destroyed by pretending it is not there. The anger you bury, it does not go away. It waits. And when it finds a crack, it comes through harder than before. Rowan thought of all the times he had tried to suppress his temper, tried to push it down, and how it always returned, darker, sharper, more difficult to contain. Then what do I do? He asked. What the old man said next took Rowan completely by surprise. You feed the right wolf, Elias said. But you must also understand the dark one. He set down his cup and turned to face Rowan fully. Your anger, where does it come from? Rowan thought, really thought, for the first time without pushing the question away. Fear, he said finally. I'm afraid I'm not enough. I'm afraid I'm going to end up like my father, working hard all his life and dying without anything to show for it. The words surprised him as they left his mouth. He had not planned to say them. He had not even known they were true until he heard himself say them out loud. Elias nodded, not with pity, with recognition. The dark wolf is not evil, the old man said quietly. It is just afraid. And afraid things hurt people when nobody tends to them. So you do not feed the darkness. But you do not ignore it either. You look at it. You understand what it is carrying. And then, carefully, gently, you return your attention and your energy to the light. Every time you choose patience over cruelty, you are feeding the right wolf. Every time you choose honesty over pride, you are feeding the right wolf. Every time you stop and breathe and ask yourself which wolf is speaking, you are already winning the battle. The morning light had risen fully now. It moved across the pine trees in long gold lines. Rowan sat with those words for a long time, and something inside him, something that had been clenched for years, slowly, quietly began to loosen. But he stayed with Elias for 3 more days. They did not talk constantly. Most of the time they just worked together, chopping firewood, carrying water from the stream at the base of the hill, sitting in easy silence as the evening came in. But in those 3 days, Rowan began to notice something. He noticed the moment before he reacted. That small, quiet pause, barely a breath long, that existed between a feeling arriving and a choice being made. He had never noticed it before. It had always felt like there was no space at all. Like his reactions just happened to him, like weather. But there it was. Tiny door. And every time he chose, even in a small way, to step through that door with something gentle instead of something sharp, the light wolf grew a little stronger. Not perfectly. Not every time. On the second evening, he snapped at himself for making a mistake with the firewood and caught himself and breathed and let it go. That night, it felt like a victory larger than anything he had won before. On the morning he left, Elias handed him something. A small smooth stone, the kind found at the bottom of a stream. When you feel the dark wolf rising, the old man said, hold this, and ask yourself, which wolf am I about to feed? Rowan looked at the stone in his hand. Then he looked at the old man. That's all. Elias smiled. Just a little. A question asked at the right moment, he said, can change everything. Years passed. Rowan married. He had children. He made mistakes, sometimes the same ones he had made before, sometimes new ones. There were mornings the dark wolf was loud and the light wolf felt distant. But he never stopped asking the question. And every time he asked it, there was that tiny pause, that quiet door. His youngest daughter once asked him why he always carried a small stone in his pocket. He held it out in his palm and looked at it for a moment. It reminds me, he said, that I have a choice. She looked at it, then looked up at him. A choice about what? He smiled. The same quiet smile Elias had given him on the hillside all those years ago. About who I want to be. That evening, he sat on the porch and watched the sun go down over the fields. The air was still. A single lantern burned in the window behind him. And inside him, as always, 2 wolves were waiting. He reached into his pocket, felt the smooth, familiar stone, and made his choice. You will not always control what rises inside you, but you will always control what you feed.